Welcome to the Scaling Creative Podcast. My name is Michaela, and today on this episode, we're going to talk about money and personal finances. So,
oh shoot,
money.
money.
That's right.
So again, my name is Michaela, and I brought a friend with me today. This is Will.
Hello.
Will.
That's Will.
Hey.
In the house.
Will.
Welcome,
And then
welcome.
Who else do we have here?
I'm Scott.
I'm
Hi.
Pablo. Hi.
Yeah.
We're all here,
So,
ready to go.
We're all here ready to go. This is a topic that I will be honest that I'm not super great in the area of personal finances. It's like an area that I'm continuing to grow in. But I brought Will in here today because it is your background, right?
It is, yes.
Finances. So tell us a little bit about your background, like what you went to college for and what you're doing currently.
Okay. West Philadelphia, born and raised. No, that's the rich Will. No, that's not me. I'm actually from a little island in New Jersey called Ocean City. Anybody familiar with Ocean City?
Yeah.
Ocean City, New Jersey. Yeah.
That was the first place we ever flew our Inspire to, our large drone
That's true.
on the beach in Ocean City.
Yeah, we had a really large
That was
drone.
completely random, but
I went there. And that was the first
we do know Ocean City.
So we do know it well, actually. Yes, we do.
We are family. We are family.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so America's greatest family resort. I grew up there and by the beach, 3 blocks from the beach and 2 blocks from the bay. So it was a really great experience. I didn't realize how wealthy the island was, the amount of wealth that was on that island until I went off to college, which that's where my interest in personal finance was piqued.
Okay.
I took a class. It was called Family Financial Management. And in this class, we learned about interest rates, credit, mortgages, and all these cool things that I had never heard of. So I'm like, wow, that's where I really learned the difference between ownership and renting.
Right.
So I also learned that the neighborhood I grew up in was a public housing project.
Okay.
That's how we were able to afford to live on a wealthy island like Ocean City.
Okay.
So light bulbs going off, eyes wide open. This is new information. Okay, I need to have this. Fast forward to graduation, I worked for a wealth management firm in northern New Jersey, high net worth individuals and families. And the minimum amount of investments you had to have in order to become a client was $1 million. So $1 million cash. If you didn't have that,
So
we
clients
weren't
like
talking to you.
Michaela.
Yes. Yes.
Exclusively. Yes.
So that's where I was introduced to wealth.
Okay.
That's where I was introduced to wealth, and I had never been exposed to that type of wealth.
That level.
After graduating college, I made a decent salary, and I made more money than most people in my family at that point. So I thought I had wealth until I started to work with these clients and see like, oh, okay, Time Warner, Apple, all these, people with all these stocks and all this tremendous amount of wealth. And there was a significant experience that I had. One of my responsibilities was to transfer assets for new clients. So if Scott was a new client, and you had your assets at Fidelity, it was my responsibility to bring them over to, let's say, Charles Schwab, who was our broker at the time. So I would say, hey, Scott, give me your account numbers. I'm going to transfer the money. So I transfer the money for these clients, millions of dollars from one account to the other. And I got a phone call one day, and it was a gentleman. I'm like, hello. He's like, yeah, well, all of my money didn't get transferred over, And I'm like, oh, okay, well, how much was it? So it was like $26.11. Now, remember, I said you got to be $1 million, $1 million in assets.
Yeah.
And he wanted to know where his $26.11 were. And he wanted to know how much interest he would get on that $26.11 while it was in limbo from the transfer.
Interesting.
So me, I'm like maybe 21, 22 at this point. I'm like, dude, it's $1 million, like multi-million, dollar account. And you're worried about $26.11. But a light bulb went off in my head. Every dollar counts.
Right.
Yeah.
It all counts. So it shifted for me. But another experience was, I felt pretty good about myself with my salary. And even with the degree, I was making all the wrong moves.
Right.
Doing everything wrong. So later on in life, I realized the psychological implications of personal financial management. There's there's so much emotional, spiritual,
Yeah.
social, all these things come into play when you're talking about money management. And these are some of the things that we need to address.
Yeah. So from like a behavioral
Behavior, yeah.
standpoint, because I know a lot of the things that, like some of my spending habits or even just the way that I think about budget or whatever has a lot to do with how I grew up and the verbiage that my parents used. My dad is the saver. My mom is the spender. And I remember too, like just driving, sometimes we would go to restaurants literally every single time. And on the way there, my dad's like, okay, you guys, you're ordering water, no appetizers. If you want to split a meal, that's great. No dessert, nothing. We got it? We're cool? So we're like, we're on a budget.
And your mom's like, show me the money.
Yeah, yeah.
And my mom, she shops. The woman can shop. So it's just so funny how some of my things, like my habits that I have, like I can really trace back to my childhood.
I think there's so much trace back to that because, my parents, neither one of them were savers. So I learned, they were horrible with money.
Okay.
Like all our lives. Like they'll tell you that now. That's why they're still in, interesting situations but I think it's so much linked to how you're growing up. Because I was taught like when you want something, you bought it.
Yeah.
They moved all the time. And this is not to throw my parents under the bus. They're great people. But they enjoyed my dad did really well for a long time financially, looking back at it, but yet never did anything wise with the money, like in terms of saving it.
Yeah.
So it's forced him into trickier situations later in life now that you can't go back. But it was always like, if you can't afford it, get a card for it, and do that, and then now it's bites them in the butt in big time because there's lots of situations they're in that they shouldn't be. But I think you're taught entirely.
I agree. I think
tricky.
My life, I've always been surrounded by people who had money, but they had learned how to save it. So like my dad was a VP of a pharmaceutical company, made plenty of money, but he bought, like this is always the running joke with him, he literally bought sneakers that are 19 years old. He doesn't buy it, like he doesn't drive a fancy car. He doesn't he's never, and then same thing with, I had these business mentors that were in their 40s. Both of them made millions of dollars, like $250,000 like every month, and they would like literally buy shoes that like lasted 11 years. And they told me they literally they always said like every single cent counts, and the fact that they said millions of dollars always goes through everybody's fingers, but they don't know how to hold on to it. And so they've taught me that, like, and maybe that's not true for everybody, but it just seems like everybody does make money, but nobody really knows how. Not nobody, but a lot of people have issues with saving it and wanting to be wise in their spending. And I'm learning that, like, I want to have a nice even balance. Like, I don't want to buy shoes that are 19 years old, but I also want to make sure I'm saving so that, I'm safe in the future or whatever. So I'm learning too, but I think it does come back to who you spend time with, your parents, anything like that.
And what you value, because
True.
Like to me, clothes are not something I care about, different things. So like spending a lot of money on clothes to me is like, that's just a waste of money to me because it's not fun to me.
That's very true.
Where like I could buy a really expensive camera tomorrow and I'm like, that's not expensive, it's a camera. Like it makes sense.
Good deal. It's a good deal.
So people are just different. Like
Yeah.
what they consider, like I hate spending a lot of money on food. Like I just think it's because I always feel just as full, whether I leave McDonald's or I leave a super fancy restaurant. Where obviously there's other sides that like, it could kill you if you eat it too much, but it's what you value.
Right.
It's so true.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously that person who cared about that $26.11, that's probably why he is a millionaire, is because he's aware and he cares and he knows where every single dollar
Absolutely.
Yeah.
is
Absolutely.
going. So is that your degree was in finance?
Yes, my degree is in personal financial management. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that's where most of my experience is. I left the wealth management world and went into insurance sales, and I starved because I wasn't a great salesman. I would end up educating more than selling. I'd spend hours just telling them on the right products, what to do, and not close the deal and not make any money. So I pretty much starved during that period. But I learned that I was more interested in educating people and educating on financial management and what to do versus selling products to them. So I became a fee-only financial planner, which is someone that for a fee, we put together a plan, tell you what products to buy, and then you go to the salesman and buy the product I tell you to buy,
Right.
or recommend that you buy versus the one they're trying to sell you.
Right.
Right.
Versus the one they try to sell.
Now, here's what I'm curious about. So, So like if I was going to hire a personal trainer, it's easy to be like, okay, that person's in shape. It's visible. It's easy to say to yourself, clearly I wouldn't take fitness advice from someone out of shape, right? As a financial planner of someone that was that young, dealing with $1 million clients, and they can't ask to see your bank account.
Right.
That's got to be tricky.
Right.
Because these millionaires who are doing well are like, here's this dude just graduated college,
right?
And he's going to tell me what to do with my money. Like, how do you get the trust from these people without showing them?
You don't. So I worked for the principal that I worked under. She was on CNBC.
Okay.
So she was the high profile financial advisor.
So they trusted
I would
her.
do the work.
They trusted her.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they
And
trusted her.
If Will is representing.
She had the final say.
Okay.
She had the final say, not the 21-year-old on the other end of the call that's just transferring the assets. So
Because I was just listening to like a podcast all about like choosing a business coach and choosing coaches in general, and they made such a good point of like, in this day and age, I can put that on my profile and say I'm a business coach, I'm a financial coach, like you do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Because there's really no way anymore to tell like who really has any credibility.
right, and that's a good point that you make, because people want to see what their perception of wealth is. So I need to pull up in the Mercedes Benz. One of my mentors, he said, hey, you need to go buy a Benz when you start selling insurance. Go buy a Mercedes or a BMW, because it's the perception that's what's going to lead people to listen to what you have to say.
Right.
And I'm just I can never do it. Like I'm me.
easy.
I don't want to spend a lot of money on clothes. I don't want to
Right.
spend I'll spend a lot of money on a restaurant, a nice restaurant.
Yep.
Absolutely. I will do that, but not clothes. That's just not my thing. I drive a Jeep Wrangler. I love that. I don't have interest in spending money on.
Right.
And it's interesting
certain
though, because
things.
it's a reality though, like a perception thing. Because even in this podcast, I won't mention the podcast, but he even said that like when he initially went to start investing into a personal finance person for their home or something, the guy had showed up in like kind of a beat up car, not a super nice suit, and the guy stood no chance in his opinion, just stepping up.
Yeah.
Because there is that reality to some people that if they value, we just had the conversation yesterday when I was driving to a client about that, like there's some people that really value just cars because they like cars, others that don't. But you can't shake what people's reality actually is.
Right.
If to them they see success as a car, whether you do or not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they see it as success. And so it's tricky, I think, in money.
It is.
Absolutely. And
Credibility.
if you look at like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, what they drive, what they wear, it's like, okay, let's
Warren Buffett. I love
shift
that.
it a little
Love that
bit.
guy.
Yeah.
Like these guys, I think Warren Buffett is still living in the original home that he grew up in, or
Yeah.
something like that. And if you look at their clothes, I mean,
Or even a guy like Mark
it's not-
Zuckerberg, like the cool, like an entrepreneur now wears a hoodie.
Right.
Like that's like,
t-shirt and jeans.
that's like the style.
Who would have thought, right?
Yeah.
Steve Jobs was kind of, I think, one of like the not originators, but like he was not ever a fancy dress. He wore the same outfit every single day. That
like
was
a
his
white
thing.
t-shirt?
No, it was a black turtleneck and jeans. He wore the same thing every day because he
Yes.
didn't want to
That's
worry
right.
about what to wear each
Yes.
day, which I love the concept because I hate even thinking about what to wear.
Yeah.
My wife just buys it and I'm like, whatever. But yeah, it's funny how like an entrepreneur these days is like not actually at all the suit
Yeah.
guy anymore. It's like this. It's this weird new
it's
thing.
definitely-
Like it's rare when you see someone unbelievably well dressed, unless they were.
And
like,
in that world, they tell you no facial hair, no facial hair, suit and tie. But I say, hey, well, those are the same people that caused the housing crisis.
yeah.
The suit and tie and the no facial hair. It's
Right,
like, hey,
right.
you going to trust me or not? But it does
Yeah.
pose a challenge for a person that's really trying to, and it's sales. So for most people, it's sales. You're selling products, so you have
Yeah.
to play the part
Right.
in order to do that.
Right.
And like anything, I'm sure just referrals are the biggest thing. When
Yeah.
someone's able to say, "This guy knows what he's talking about,"
Yeah.
goes a long way.
Definitely.
Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't matter so much the outward appearance. Like if it's a referral and somebody trusts you,
Yeah.
you'll definitely take their word
Yeah.
for it. And so appearance is definitely, I think, less important.
And I guess to a point, if you really had a client that is determining whether you're good or not by something, it's probably not the right client anyway.
Yeah,
If-
that's one
if-
you're going to end up.
Yeah.
That's going to end up.
If they
firing
need you to
you're
wear
gonna fire
something
them.
or
Yeah.
act a certain way or drive something, chances are it's not going to be a fun client to work with in the
Yeah.
first place.
Yeah.
Most likely not.
So when I was doing a little bit of research for this podcast, I was looking at statistically speaking, entrepreneurs are actually some of the worst with their personal finances. And so I was talking to Will, well, just like through email about this first. And like, what do you think are some of the reasons why entrepreneurs are maybe not the best with their personal finances? Can you think of anything off?
I would say the first thing is they don't think of themselves as a business, or what they're doing as a business. They don't set it up like a business, a separate account. Have a business account versus the personal, and everything is coming out of the same account, and that's where you run into problems because you may not have enough money to reinvest into the business. It becomes, do I reinvest into the business or do I pay my rent this month?
Right.
So that's a setup for failure. So just not having the proper structure, structuring the business as this is my business. If I go and work for a company, they're not taking out of their personal account to pay me.
Right.
They're taking out of the business account.
Yeah. So I made that mistake. I don't know did you make that mistake at all when you first started, or?
I did, but luckily, even when I went full time in my business, I had a wife who's good with money, so she's much smarter. I am a spender all day. I couldn't even tell you how much money is in my bank because I don't even look ever.
Yeah.
Because my wife just does that stuff, but I'm still a spender. But I think it's absolutely something that a lot of people do.
Yeah.
They don't realize at all. Like now I finally I pay myself a salary and I do things the correct way and have money, something like that. I do. I like I said, I don't do it. We have an accountant that helps with that because you just don't know it. And when you go into a business, you're not an accountant.
Right.
So you may be really good and really creative and get work and sell work but you don't know anything else other than that.
Right.
And too many people try to be their accountants. And it's why are you trying to be someone that you have no clue?
Yeah.
Right,
Because a lot of times entrepreneurs tend to be, I don't want to say they tend to be creative, but sometimes that part is they're not as strong at as money and numbers and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think businesses, what do they say, 80% or 90% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. And then the other, I think it's 1%. I just heard this the other day, 1% of businesses continue to exist after 10 years of all that initial craziness. And I think it's all comes down to that.
Yeah.
I think there's people that can make money and make business and make great work. But if you don't do money well, you're in trouble.
Yeah, entrepreneurs are good at what they do. So if I can cook, I'm a great chef.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I know how to run a restaurant.
Yep.
That's true.
Right.
Staff a restaurant and make sure that the bills are paid on time. And that's why it requires more people at the table to add value and create that structure. But yeah.
And I think people usually don't want to invest when you just start a business. You don't want to invest money into an accountant or someone that early because you're I don't even have employees yet. I don't want to. But yet you're in big trouble if all the money comes in and goes out equally as fast.
So if you're a brand new entrepreneur, what do you think is the best way? And anybody can answer this too. But what do you think is the best thing to do to set up a team around you if you really don't have a lot of money to invest necessarily in that? What do you do?
I would say have a team, but
a
something
volunteer team?
something that Scott said earlier, it's pay yourself a salary when it comes to manage, because all the money that comes in is not your money.
Right.
So just cut out what's going to be yours, so you'll have money to reinvest in the business. But you do need a team. You do need people that have strengths in areas that you're not as strong. Marketing, accounting. You want to make sure that the bills are paid and all that stuff.
Right.
So I do recommend or think it's a good thing or smart, wise to have a team. Yeah.
And there are some, I think, affordable ways to begin. Right away, no one's necessarily going to be able to, afford their own personal accountant for their business as their first thing. But there are resources that you can use to at least get some legal help in some of these things. The same thing with people that, when we were filing our LLCs and our business things, I didn't have my own lawyer at that time, but there are resources that you can pay, companies that help you set those things up. Same with finances.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to get to the point where you have a personal one for your business, but a lot of people just aren't gonna be able to afford that right away.
Right.
And you should at least try to seek someone or seek people like Will or seek these people that do know and spend a little bit of money. Getting contracts and different things correct is important because it can also kill your business. If you get sued and you're like, well, I just never thought it was important to have contracts. Well, sorry. Like, so even if you invest a little bit of like, can you build me a game plan, Will?
Yeah.
Just to at least get it started. It's better at least having some game plan than just trying to do it all yourself with no knowledge. Just as silly.
You also need to know who you are. Because like for me, I had my own business. I had 2 businesses before I worked for Scott. And then I realized it took me that amount of time to realize who I am. And I'm not like, I'm a business owner at heart, but like I'm not great at being the number one in a company. And I'd rather, and I'm talking to that person that's watching or listening that like wants to be a business owner just because they want that title, or just wants to be a business owner or an entrepreneur just because they want the title of it. But if you actually can help a number one succeed and do really well under somebody instead, it's like I just want to make sure, because like sometimes we're directly talking to business owners, but not everybody watching is that person.
Number 2.
And a lot of people fool themselves thinking that they are that person just because they want to have the ego of it. and that's, that's not something that you need to succeed. You can help somebody else succeed and win big inside that company, or help somebody. You know what I mean? So, because you have to build a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always love when Gary Vee says stuff like, the number 97 at Facebook is making way more money than everybody else around the you don't have to the title, and that's a big piece of understanding what you are good at and what you're not. I think that's the biggest problem with entrepreneurs. They just naturally, the minute they get their first client, they're like, I got this, I got the rest of it, I got this all. They don't realize they now have to be an accountant, they have to be a boss, they have to be the creative while also doing invoices, that's not easy.
Yeah, I experienced that myself stepping out as an entrepreneur. Sometimes when people think finance, they lump us all into one category, into one group. We're all the same.
Yeah.
So I know stocks, I know insurance, I know estate planning, and that's not the case. So I was a little confused myself. Just thinking that because I knew finance and I could just do those things. And I stepped out and I was doing my own thing, and I got my first client and everything worked out. And I was doing financial education. So versus the one-on-one stuff, just large groups, educating large groups. And I got the first client, and I'm like, cool, I'm ready to go. But no marketing plan. So nobody knows what I'm doing. My social media is terrible, so I was talking to Michaela about this as well. I kind of got discouraged, like, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing this because I don't like to do that piece, the marketing and the networking. I just want to come in and do the seminar, the workshop, and go.
Right.
So you have to have a team.
Yes.
You have to have a team.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's so true. I think with personal finances, it's one of those things where, for me, once I started really spending time in this area and being like faithful and obedient and just better, it transferred over into other areas of my life. Have you guys ever found that to be true?
Well, I think without question in marriage, the number one cause of divorce is money.
Yeah.
Like, for a reason.
Yeah.
It's a pain point for people.
Yeah.
It is.
If you're bad with money and your spouse is not, you can get in a lot of arguments. Literally, my wife and I have an amazing relationship. The only times we ever argue has to do with money.
Yeah.
Wow.
For some reason.
Yeah.
And I think that's just true. So I think it translates well, because if you're in a good place financially, not that your worries go away, but most worries come from money.
Yes.
They come from people being like, we're in a tough situation. What are we doing about this? What are we doing like this? It's usually not about like actual life.
Oh, God.
It's about not being comfortable, and something it usually has to do with that.
Yeah.
So I think it translates absolutely.
It's very stressful. And women and men, we communicate differently.
Yep.
So a man is going to internalize it and come up with a plan in his head, and a woman or wife is going to want to talk about it. Okay, what's the plan?
Yeah.
We're working on a plan.
Yeah.
We're working on a plan here, but we haven't communicated the plan.
Right.
And then there's miscommunication, and then just
And a lot of
gets
women value
scary from
security. So
Yes.
it's like security to them is money. But if you approach a man of like saying money's tight, that hits their ego, and men are driven so much by that. So that's why it gets difficult. The woman's like, what are we doing about money? But then you're devaluing or derespecting, and I'm doing air quotes if you're not watching this, you're disrespecting what the man feels by making him feel like he's not making enough money and the man's supposed to do that and whatever in a relationship. So it's just this really, really tricky place.
It really is.
I think it's huge. It's good for businesses or personal.
And we're not taught it. Like, I think it should really be taught in
Yep.
like high school and college, like to really learn about personal finances. But there's not a lot out there, or at least when I was in high school and college, there wasn't. Maybe there is now.
I know in New Jersey, they made it mandatory for middle schoolers to have some type of personal finance education. And I recently,
middle schoolers, or?
just middle schoolers right now.
Okay.
So I recently,
That's when they finally are paying attention at that time. In high school, they stop. So
Right.
I guess it makes more sense.
because they're making so much money in middle school, they need to know what to do with it.
They gotta get that slime, that money on that slime that they're selling.
But I recently spoke at the New Jersey Education Association's annual conference, and I was talking to some of the teachers about finance. And one guy, he was a history teacher. He's like, yeah, but they're making me teach personal finance now. A science teacher is teaching personal finance because
gosh.
it's mandatory, so somebody has to teach it.
Right.
So they just pick you. And he's
Like,
I don't
even
know
if you're
anything
not good
about
at,
it.
Oh my
You're
god,
not good
see,
at it.
that's just terrible.
So they're like, the whole room is like, yeah, I do this and I don't, I do all these other things. Nobody has a background in
Names
finance,
and a
but
hat.
they're teaching, they're teaching this class. to
Kind of
middle
sounds like a
school.
lot of people that call themselves social media managers.
So
That's crazy. Okay.
So you went in and
Oh
you
my gosh,
talked to
that's crazy.
them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I gave them a crash course and everything,
right.
budgeting, credit, debt, insurance, because those are the main areas that you really need to have covered, in my opinion, in investing for retirement. And I gave them a crash course and just let them ask questions.
Okay.
And, there was a lot of frustration in the room because of the way that's being handled.
Okay.
Yeah.
See.
Yeah.
See, yeah, because I remember about a while back, the way I met my wife actually was we used to travel around the country when I was a full-time musician, and we would partner with credit unions to do these things called concerts for financial literacy, where the whole point of them was like do a concert to get kids' attention, but then in the midst of it, it's sponsored, no one's paying for it except for the credit union, and then have a piece in the middle of the concert that was like how to deal with money, like how to be smart with money. And it was something that I just still believe so firmly in, because like you said, it's just their kids aren't learning it.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurs are younger and younger and younger,
Yeah.
and they're smarter and smarter because they have more access to consumers than ever before, that you can build businesses
Yeah.
on your couch
Yeah.
with no money to start.
Yeah.
The problem is you start making money and then you're in trouble if you don't actually know it.
Well-
and no one's teaching them.
I mean, I shared with you earlier, just being transparent. I had a degree in personal financial management and, the credit cards and doing all these crazy things because of, just habits that I established over
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and watching what parents and family members did.
Yeah.
Not really having an understanding of how I can use this tool for security and success. It's buy everything, take care of everybody, take care of family members, just spend, don't save, because the rainy day's never going to come.
Right. So
Until it does.
knowledge, I mean, knowledge is like one thing,
Yeah.
but then applied knowledge. I always say knowledge is powerful, but applied knowledge is like way more powerful.
Yeah, Dave Ramsey says that personal financial management is 80% behavior and 20% knowledge.
Yep.
Yeah.
80% behavior,
Yeah.
20% knowledge. Yeah.
Hey, you have to do something about
Yeah.
it. Like
Right.
you can't just know about it.
We can write a budget right now. We can,
Yeah.
we all know how much we make. We all know what
Yeah.
our bills are. That's a budget.
Yeah.
Very simple to do, but
We all know that if you save money, it's good. But not a lot of people actually do it.
Would it be safe to say, and maybe I'm asking you this question, I guess everybody, but you specifically, would it be safe to say that most people don't out of fear? Like they don't even want to they don't even want to go down that road of looking at because there's some people that literally just don't even want to even touch that
Yes.
nerve, you know what I mean, or whatever that may be.
Yes.
Would that make sense? Or
I would agree with you. A lot of it is rooted in fear. There are people that, I always tell people, when the bills come in the mail, open them up. Don't leave it as a stack or put it
Yeah.
in the bill drawer and just never look at it, because
Right.
people just avoid it. But you need to open it up and look at it and face the reality of your situation.
Sure.
If you don't face it, you can't fix it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we have to look at it, and there is fear, and we just go through the motions, just keep going until it crashes, and then you really have to look at it, and you're in trouble,
in trouble at that point.
and you got to climb out. Yeah,
So the problem I see is there's because everyone can say that they're anything. They can say they're fitness instructors, someone's listening to this and they're like, yeah, you know what? I got to get smarter. You can find resources everywhere.
Yes.
what type of things should people be asking someone claiming to know what they're doing to actually get help?
Yeah.
Because you can get help you can ask for help all you want, but if you ask for help and get the wrong advice, the advice isn't good.
Yes.
Sure.
So there's millions of self-proclaimed people in every business this day and age. How does someone go about starting to even find a resource other than calling you, Will?
So I think that, credentials are always great. You know, what's your background, what's your experience? You have degrees. That's always great. But you have to start with what your personal goals are.
Right.
As I said earlier, we're not all this one and the same when it comes to financial education, financial advisor, financial, all these different names. If your goal is investing, people will come up to me, hey man, what's a hot stock to invest in? I'm like, that's not my lane. I have another guy that's his lane. He watches the market. That's just not my thing because I'm a long-term person. I think I help you to plan long-term retirement, not the quick fix on the stock.
Right.
So identifying what your goal is, if your goal is to establish a strong retirement savings or investment strategy, then you need to go to an investment advisor. But on the front end, you need a financial planner that's going to give you the overall plan, a comprehensive plan. And that requires some credentials. There's the Certified Financial Planning Designation, which is an excruciating exam. It's 10 hours. I sat for it once and I walked out with a headache and I didn't pass. And it was excruciating. That was 10 years ago, longer than that. Wow, I'm old. Long time ago, an excruciating exam, but these are qualified. These are qualified people.
Yeah.
And I would also say start with a fee only, a person that charges a fee for advice versus commissions, because when there's a commission, there's a sale. If my lights are about to get cut off or if my mortgage is behind, I'm going to sell you the most expensive, the product that's going to give me the highest commission.
Yeah.
So you want to start with a fee only planner, and you can Google that. They have there's an organization of fee only financial planners, and they will give you a comprehensive plan. It may cost you a couple of grand to do that, but you'll have your long-term plan for the next 20, 30 years. And then you go to the other advisors and specialists to get the other products that you'll need to execute the plan.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I just did that. I just got a whole comprehensive
Oh, cool.
Good.
plan. And
How did you feel when you left it?
I actually felt really good. I was so nervous about this whole thing because for me, there was like a lot of shame and embarrassment of just kind of the way that I've handled my money, or just when I went through my divorce and becoming a single mom, I kind of pretended that I was good. I didn't want anybody to know how much I was really struggling. And
Sure.
I don't like when people feel bad for me, or, like I'm the happy one, So I just kind of like hid in that, but I got myself in such a bad place, and then I had to really dig myself out. So when I met with the financial planner, I just kind of was like super honest about it, and she made me feel okay, because I've actually done a lot of work. Like I totally paid off my student loans. I have no credit card debt anymore. I have just a few $1,000s left on my car, and like that's it. And so she made me feel really good about where I'm at. But then she was also realistic about what I needed to do. Because I'm like, I want to invest. I want to do all these things. She's like, okay, there's a few things though that we need to build up a little bit.
Step one.
Step one, yeah. Because I am I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. Like I'm a big dreamer. I'm a big thinker, so I just think big. And she kind of helped me to, she showed me some of the big stuff, but brought me back down to, we need to start you on just getting a couple months of savings, like
Right.
of,
The path you're on right now.
little padding.
And I think that that's important in general with anyone in finances, is to realize if you're in a terrible, terrible situation right now, you can get out of it.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you're going to get out of it next month or next year or 3 years from now. And especially if you're young, you're young, even though sometimes we don't feel young, we still have, Lord willing, if we don't die in a car accident or anything, we still have a long time to live, meaning we have time. Yeah. And if you feel overwhelmed or feel embarrassed, realize that a lot of people are in that situation. You're just not necessarily seeing it. And the same reason that you were ashamed, and you people also, that's why they get themselves in debt in the first place. They're trying to impress people.
Yes.
They're making dumb decisions because they want people to think that they have something together. So it's just part of, like, more people than not are not good at money than are good at money.
It's very personal. It's very
Yeah.
personal. And, if you go into a room full of 25, let's say 25 people and say, okay, everyone, tell me how much you make. That's how I start some of my workshops. Okay, tell me how much you make. How much is your paycheck each week? And people are like looking around like, is he serious? Because they don't want to share that information. They don't want to share what their income is.
Yep.
Right.
Because
Sometimes
there
not.
may be embarrassment or whatever.
Even with their loved ones.
Yeah.
The ones they're closest to, their wives or whatever. Sometimes-
Financial infidelity. Yeah.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Financial infidelity, or secrets,
Yeah.
the secret account.
Yep.
Not letting you know how much I make,
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's a form of control also. It's
Yep.
a form of control. That infidelity is a form of control.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a sensitive subject at all levels. That's why, and it translates to home,
For sure.
to relationships, to everything. Because
Business.
it's never a thing that everyone is just super comfortable with.
Right.
Millionaires don't want you to know how much money they make.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not just about people that are ashamed they don't make enough money. Just it's a thing no one wants to talk about.
Yeah.
So I was recently at a conference, or not too long ago, that you were at, and there was this one woman, I don't remember her name, but she talked about two different clients. One had never really made more than like 50 grand his whole life, but she's looking at his portfolio, and he was a millionaire, but never really made a lot of money. And then another guy comes in making 200 and something a year, and he's got nothing.
Yes.
He's got the nice car and the huge house and all that kind of stuff, but he's not a millionaire. But this guy making not even 50 grand
Yes.
a year for his whole life. So I just thought that's powerful. We spend so much of our lives trying to be perceived in a certain way that, we're like, we want it to look like we're doing well.
Right.
We care so much about that
Yeah.
and less about what's actually
Yeah.
going on.
You're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shooting yourself in the foot. And I've encountered people, 6-figure earners. And like we were talking about earlier, that the perception. So I'm not a millionaire. I have a plan where I'm going to retire as a millionaire, but
Right.
I've never made 6 figures. I don't think I'll ever make 6 figures. I work for a church. So I get paid well for, at my job. But
Yeah. Sure.
what I'm saying is I can make a lot more money in sales
Right.
or as a full-time
Right.
financial
Right.
advisor,
Right.
selling products and advice. But I don't make that type of income. So when you don't make that type of income, you need to have a plan.
Right.
So I read this somewhere. They said financial planning for a millionaire is a luxury. Financial planning for a regular person is a necessity. When you're making less than $50,000, you need a financial plan. You gotta have it. When you're making $100,000, it's a luxury. It's something extra that you can have because you make a lot of money and you can do things. But when you have limited resources, you have to have a plan.
I think that's a great point, because I also think that's if people realize, like, I'm sure you deal with a lot of people that don't make a lot of money. They're like, well, I can't start saving. I barely make enough money. Everyone can start doing better with their finances, regardless of how much money you're bringing in, regardless of how much debt you're in. There's still a plan.
Yes.
Because when you actually evaluate where the money is going that you do make, a lot of people are like, oh, well, then I'd have to get rid of. Well, maybe you do then.
Get rid of it.
You have to temporarily live like no one now, so you can live like no one later, like Dave Ramsey says. That's been a huge and I'm not always great at it. My wife's amazing at that. Sometimes I live differently than I should with money, but that's what she kind of keeps trying to push is like, I'm doing well right now and enjoying, not having to worry too much about that right this second. But it's like, if I don't invest wisely or do good things with my money now, it's not gonna be like that forever. And so she's always trying to get me to understand the idea of, like, I always love that mentality of live like no one now, like you can live like no one later. But for us, it's like we actually have to do really good. My dad always made great money, never put anything away, and now he's in, not in trouble, but because of it.
Yeah.
And thank God that I have my wife who's good with that kind of stuff, trying to make me make good decisions while things are good, so I don't get myself in trouble. But people can save money if they really want.
And they, it's, I can't afford to save. Well, if you lose your job, if you lose your job tomorrow, you don't have any income. So then that's when you can't afford to save.
Yeah,
you don't have anything coming in. But as long as you have something coming in, there's something that you have that's tangible that you can put away for a rainy day, even if it's $25 a month or $25 a week or whatever. Just develop the habit, and then you'll learn to make the adjustments where you can live without it.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Is it's a habit.
It's a habit.
You have to form. So the one thing I started working on a couple of years ago was just the way that I talk about money. Like I used to always say, I'm bad with money. Like that was like what I used to tell myself. And it was really that I just had bad habits in that area. And so I'm like, okay, my focus is I'm going to work on my habits. And it was for me just like $20 every single week, just saving, not just to get in the habit of putting something away.
Yeah.
And then last year when I started being really faithful to tithing, my 10% to the church, and it was just automatic. It's amazing how things started shifting too, just being faithful in that and being obedient in certain areas. What happens?
And it's amazing how you probably went from like, I could never imagine giving 10% of my money to I can't imagine not.
Yeah.
It's a mindset.
Yeah.
It is.
Like,
it's a mindset.
Yep.
And
I was going to say that
save
too,
yourself.
because then so I'm a Christian, and a lot of us are, and so we go to church and we tithe or whatever. But like even just the concept of being generous, I think for anybody is super important, because I've found the more that I give, for some reason, the more I get. It's like I've noticed it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I was listening to something with Jenny recently, my wife Jenny, where a pastor was saying like God doesn't give you more like to bless you, like to give you like your standard of living, to raise that. He gives it to raise your like how much you give, the amount that you give. And so I feel like the more, at least this is maybe some tip for somebody, is that the more I've given out of just giving money or whatever, helping people, like just doing something or whatever. And I used to be kind of like scared of that, because I'd be like, it's a coffee, it's a $5 or, in your head. But like, no, the more I've given, all of a sudden I come back and I look at my account, I'm like, wow, where did that come from? That was not, I can't explain it. So it's something that's really helped me. I don't know if that's something that's maybe the same, but
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the habit thing is big, because you think
Habit's
about like
big.
January 1st when January 1st comes, all these people start wanting to get in shape, right? And you hear someone be like, I'm going to start going to the gym 5 days a week starting January 1st. Wait, you don't go at all now. And you think you're going to go from 0 to 5 days a week for an hour?
me.
Like, how about you start with like 5 minutes in your like
today.
guest room and try to start working out. And that's a great point about even if it's $5 a week that you start saving, it's $5 more than you were saving previously a week.
Right.
And once you start to see the account balance, or when you start to see things happen in fitness, you start to get more motivated that now you're doing it an hour a day, and you're like, now it doesn't feel like anything.
Right.
But we talk to people all the time with YouTube, same thing. I'm going to start daily vlogging. Wait, you've never vlogged before. You're not going to just start like that.
Right.
You got to start with little things,
Baby
which
steps.
then motivate you to do bigger things.
because if you set the habits up now with little,
Yes.
when you have a lot,
Exactly.
Because I've seen that too, where people make like all of a sudden, like you ever see somebody who like wins the lottery and then like a year later they're broke,
Blow it. Yeah.
because they didn't grow with their money.
Yeah.
And so I feel like when
good.
your habits grow with your money, like you're even all the way through. And I mean, you make mistakes, of course, because when you start to make a little bit of money,
Right.
things start to change, like
Yeah.
inside of you, ego-wise or whatever. But it can. But if you do grow with your money with those little habits, starting small, it can really help you when you grow. Because I've seen that. We've all seen the lottery people. They lose all the money. Or like NBA players, same thing. Like ball players, like these guys, they lose all their money because they don't grow with their money. That's
or they don't have a plan.
Don't have a plan. So with personal financial management and working out, it's the same principles. Establishing a plan and sticking to it.
right.
Not shooting for the stars.
Yeah.
I'm planning to run a marathon in New Jersey in April.
Nice.
I'm not going out today and running 10 miles.
Right.
I'm
Right.
going to start with 20 yards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with 20
We'll get
yards,
there
be
first.
consistent with that, and then I'll work my way up. And I've done it before, but just incrementally just building up. Like you said, we start at the beginning of the year with these goals.
We try to go from zero to
without a
hero.
plan. Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I think the accountability side in fitness has always been important. It's the same with money.
Yes.
You need to have someone
Yes.
that you can let your ego go, show someone what you're making, show someone that is smart with your plan, and have them keep you accountable.
Tell the truth.
Because that is the same with fitness. The reason I got something that tells me what to do every single day as my fitness is because I don't enjoy working out. The only way I will actually do something if someone tells me what to do each day, but I have to have like the accountability of actually the plan for it. But money's the same, and because it's so sensitive, people are like, I'm going to start saving money, but no one knows about it.
Right. Yeah.
So when they don't save money, there's no
No
repercussions.
one knows about it.
When you have someone that literally like, hey, my wife has helped people in the past like with money, and she's literally like made them write her a check to start saving where they don't even have access to it because the accountability. If you don't have anyone watching or helping you, you have no chance if you've never done it before.
Right.
You need somebody to give you some sort of like accountability for that.
Yes.
And I think that for me, like as an entrepreneur, what I've tried to do is when I am seeking advice, I try to seek advice from people who have gone through similar situations and come out of it successfully. So like a personal finance person makes sense to me if they've worked with other people in my type of field because it's just different.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that even as a single mom, like if you found a single mom who was doing really well financially, they're going to make a bigger impact in your life than anyone. So trying to listen to like who you listening to advice from should matter a lot because everyone can claim to be really good at something.
Yeah.
And being able to say, okay, they've gone through my situation or they've helped someone, you at least know that they're worth listening to.
Yeah.
For sure.
And for me, I'm like the step before that person. So I educate you so you'll know what to listen for,
Right.
And what information to pay attention to when you're meeting with this advisor. So I'm a financial educator more so than advisor. I can give advice, but I'd rather just educate people and give them the information, give them the tools that they need to have a conversation with an advisor so they can make it and reach their goals. But, you have all these people. You have Dave Ramsey, you have Susie Orman, you have so many other financial gurus out there
Ramit.
that that have the books. And from my perspective, they're all saying the same thing. And it's have a budget, save, invest, get your credit right, pay down your debt. They're all saying the same thing. So what I boiled it down to, and I like to keep things simple. And I feel like if you have a plan for investing for retirement, you have a set amount that you're going to save and invest for retirement. That's step one, making sure that you have a plan to get out of debt, to eliminate that debt, retire your debt, mortgage, all of it, because that frees up your income and your cash flow for you to do other things later. Do that. And then insurance, life insurance, making sure that you have life insurance just in case something happens to you that your family is taken care of. Now, if we take care of these three expenses up front or these three areas, the rest of the money, you can do whatever you want to do with it. There's some guilty pleasures that we all have that we may have to make sacrifices in other areas. I haven't had cable in probably 15 years. I don't watch TV. I work. I read books. So because I do that, I don't spend $200 a month on cable. If I want to go to Puerto Rico next week, I'm going to Puerto Rico next week.
Yeah.
If I want to go to the steakhouse and have a $200 meal, I can do that because I made the sacrifice in another area. So when I share with my groups about financial management and I'm educating them, I try to make a distinction between the B word and a spending plan. The B word is budget. And I give this analogy, or it's actually an illustration where I have handcuffs and then I have a rubber band. So if you have handcuffs, that's a budget. Right. That's how people think of a budget. It's like, I can't do anything. It's restrictive, right? But a large rubber band around your wrist, right? You're restricted, but you can move around. There's flexibility. Right. You're restricted because your income is limited. There's a limited amount of income, but you can move it around. You can say, okay, this $200, instead of going to Comcast, is going to go to my savings account, right? And just making those sacrifices so that the long-term goal, which is a safe retirement where you're not working after you retire.
Semi-retired.
Semi-retired. Yeah, my mom did that. She retired and went back to work. I don't understand.
Whatever that means, right.
But yeah, so just having a plan and knowing that this is what I make. This is how much money I make each week. This is what I'm bringing home. I have to put something away for saving, right? I have to make sure that life insurance, car insurance, homeowners insurance, all that stuff is paid. And I have to have my plan for eliminating this debt to free up my income to give myself a raise later on down the road.
Right.
Once those things are out of the way, hey, if I want to go to Starbucks every day, I'm gone.
Yeah, if you want to feel like you have way more money, you can either make more money or just have less overhead.
Yes.
And you feel like you're making a lot more money.
Yes.
It's like it's not that hard of an idea, but
Right.
people have to actually do it.
Yeah.
It's like
Right.
you talked all the time. You can give plans all day. If someone doesn't do something about it, the plan's no good. Like everyone in the world could lose weight and get in shape if they stopped eating so much and worked out. That's it. Like if you literally did the most boring workout, it's simple.
Yeah.
To a point.
Yeah.
But you have to actually do it.
Yeah.
80%
Like,
actually.
people just
20%
want
no, just
just want this like quick fix. I want to get in shape. What's my 30-day thing? How about like next 20-year thing? Because you shouldn't
Right.
stop getting
Lifestyle.
same with money.
Right.
Lifestyle. Make
And
it a
If you want to retire at 50, you should start being good with money for the next 30 years when you're 20, so that you're not when you hit 49 and you're suddenly like, all right, what should I do for retirement? Like you might still be at that point, but like
Sure.
you've got to start doing something,
Yeah.
even if it's little.
Habits.
Yes.
Like everything just
And
comes
everything.
down to habits. And we live in such a short-term world that like everyone's just thinking about the short-term goals instead of the long-term goals. And I think habits in literally every area can help you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this was great.
So
This
good.
was a great
So
great
good.
conversation. So good.
So good.
So good.
So good.
What were some of your biggest takeaways? What's like one thing you really liked about what we talked about today?
Spend more money. No, I'm just
Yes.
no, no.
I mean, a plan. It's the same in business. It's the same in fitness. It's the same in anything. Like this just takes putting a plan in place and doing it.
Yep.
It's
Just like most successful people do with anything.
yeah.
A business plan.
Actually,
don't-
do something.
You don't get better. You don't get better with money by talking about it
Right.
Yeah.
ever.
But I think my favorite thing was the team, talking about the team and
Team.
being accountable
Yeah.
to someone that makes the biggest difference.
For sure.
What about you, Pablo?
I think I just like the idea of like being responsible now so that you can do what you need to do later. Because I think also a lot of people get kind of scared to spend. You know, they can almost get so to the other side of it where they're like, no, I don't want to spend anything. But it's true. Like if you have all your bases covered, you can. You want to go to Starbucks? Go to Starbucks. Do what you want. It's your money. You can do what you want. So,
Yeah.
so I think I like that idea of like, you know, being responsible, making sure your bases are covered, making sure the family's taken care of, you know, all your stuff. But being allowed to spend and being allowed to, you know, make sure you're taken care of. The rubber band.
Cool. Visual. I like that.
I like that as well.
What did you think of your first podcast experience, Will?
Oh, shoot.
Hey, man, it's been a good time.
Well, we really, really do appreciate your time. This was his day off, and he came,
Ah.
traveled down here. So we're really
man.
grateful and
Yes.
appreciative
It's
of,
my pleasure.
of your
My
time
pleasure.
and your talent and your knowledge.
I'm honored.
Me too. Me too.
It's good stuff. Well, thanks.
Oh,
Want me to finish, or do you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
you can
for it,
finish it off.
Michaela.
Okay.
do it.
We're gonna leave that in the edit anyway, just so you can.
No.
For those people that are still watching.
they always leave in like my awkwardness.
It's just
And we
good.
cut out ours.
Yeah. We're perfect.
Because I'm not the editor,
That's right.
you know.
right.
The editor holds all the power. Remember.
Well, thank you guys so much for spending time with us today, whether you're watching or listening. Like, subscribe. Feel free, if this was a powerful episode for you, share it on Instagram or wherever you're at.
Yeah.
So, do you want people to follow you at all,
Oh yeah.
Mr. Nod?
You love social media.
Nod? No, I wasn't
Not yet.
sure. Not yet.
All right. Well, if by the time you're watching this, he's changed his mind, all his information will be down below.
My coach, Will J.
Okay.
Instagram. It's my coach, Will
My
J.
coach, Will J.
Yeah,
all
perfect.
spelled out just like it sounds.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. Later.
There you go.
After I get some help
Later.
with my social
All right.
media.
Well,
you go.
know a few people.
Right.
There you go.
All right, we will see you guys next time.